Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Zaleski Sports Show. Jason Zaleski here alongside Steve Maves. And, Steve, we had a big weekend of NFL football playoffs, and we're going to start right there. We got a bunch of other stuff on the show, but this is so important, we won't even tease what's coming. Everybody knows what's coming, but first, the Green Bay Packers headed to the NFC Championship game. Davante Adams, 8 catches, 160 yards, a pair of touchdowns, but no bigger catch than the one he made with about, 3 minutes left or so in that game. And then, of course, it was a Jimmy Graham catch for a first down. Now, some Vikings and Bears fans and even some Cowboy fans out there saying, what in the world's going on at Lambeau? We'll get into that later on, though. But first, Steve, tell us all about the Green Bay Packers taking down the Seattle Seahawks 28-23.
And again, as they have all season long, or not all season, but a majority of the year, they get off to such a hot start. They were up 21-3 at halftime, but a player like Russell Wilson is never out of the game. They came back, scored on their opening possession. Packers came back and scored again, as you mentioned. Davante Adams, 8 catches, 160 yards, a couple touchdowns. And the route running by Davante yesterday was outstanding. Alan Lazard got hurt, the number 2 receiver aforementioned. Jimmy Graham had a nice game, 3 catches, 49 yards. One of his better games of the year, which is crazy to think that 49 yards for Jimmy Graham is a good game. But defensively, Zadarius and Preston Smith, a couple of sacks on their own. Zadarius was chasing a record in the first half. He had 2 sacks. The only other Packer to have 3 sacks in a game, in a playoff game, is Reggie White, and that was in Super Bowl 31 in a Packer victory. But 28-23 win, looked great all around. They have to take on the 49ers again, which is tough. But good to have a home playoff game, their first NFC championships since 2016 when they got throttled by the Atlanta Falcons. But looking forward to a great game next week in Santa Clara against the Santa Clara 49ers.
So that's exactly right. And it's so important, and guys like me and you talk about this, and people listen. It's so important to have a home game in the NFL. Now, there's one team out there right now that has not had any and is in a championship game as well. We'll get to them in just a minute. But it's so important to have that home game, to have that opportunity in front of where you're comfortable, in front of your home fans, just where things work, and where sometimes you might get a first down call and a little bit of discussion. It went to review. It went to review. Jimmy Graham. Here's what I'll tell you, folks. If he did or didn't get the first down, it didn't matter. The Green Bay Packers were going to get the first down on the next play anyway. It would have been 4th and inches, and the Packers would not have punted. They would have handed off to Aaron Jones. He would have got the first down. And here's why. You're going to have those 11 guys on the field, and everybody gets in the huddle and says, we've got 3 inches to go to the NFC Championship game. We're at home, and we're going to do it. And an NFL offensive line and an NFL football team on offense is going to be able to get 3 yards. It's just the way it is. So Bears and Vikings fans, chill out. This is coming from a Cowboys fan who saw Dez Bryant catch the ball and saw on the clock still over 4 minutes left in that game. And the way the Cowboys defense was playing that day, the Packers were going to march down the field and get a field goal and win the game anyway. So the same outcome. It's the same outcome. Yeah. Whether he got that first down or not didn't matter. Turns out the officials ruled he did, so he did.
Well, and that's what everybody was making a big deal about, was that yellow line that Fox has on the field. It's unofficial. I mean, there's pictures going all around that the yellow marker was inside the 36-yard line when the first down was just outside the 36-yard line. So looking at it as a Packer fan, obviously, a very close play. But the thing that people were questioning is that they came out of the review, said the call stands, and then they went back and said, hey, we have further video evidence, and then the same call. And so nothing really changed. Nothing did change. A couple of kneel downs, and obviously Pete Carroll not happy, but it is what it is. And the funny thing going into the game on Sunday, somebody in Green Bay bought a billboard and said the gum chewing ends in Green Bay. Because you look at Pete Carroll and he just chews that gum like a cow. So, but a big win for the Packers at home in Lambeau Field weather. I mean, 10 to 15 degrees was outstanding, or was ideal for the Packers. Yeah,
Coach Carroll chews that gum like he wants to kill it. And that gum is dead by the time he's done. And then at the end of the game, Steve, it was a graffiti snowfall. It was a nice, picturesque ending, which has led us to a bunch of snow on the ground here this morning. So, but that was the Packers, 28-23. And Steve mentioned it. They will move on to play the San Francisco 49ers, who in the first playoff game of the weekend took down the Minnesota Vikings 27-10. Steve, it was 14-10 at halftime. Interesting there, the 49ers used timeouts to get the ball back at halftime. And then the 49ers and Coach Shanahan looked at the scoreboard and said, hey, wait a minute, we're up 14-10. The Vikings aren't going to score again. We've got them solved. We're just going to kneel the ball down and go to halftime. So we took our victory formation at the end of the first half. And sure enough, the Vikings never even got close, never even threatened, couldn't put a series together in the second half. And the 49ers take down the Vikings 27-10, and their matchup on Sunday in the NFC Championship game. That's a late game on Sunday.
Yeah, and it was outstanding what the 49ers did in the whole game. I mean, holding Delvin Cook to the yards that he had. Stephon Diggs got out early. It looked like it was going to be a shootout the rest of the way. Stephon Diggs scored on the opening possession, or the second possession for the Vikings, but defensively just outstanding. And Richard Sherman said afterwards when Kevin Stefanski got hired by the Browns why his defensive coordinator didn't get hired, because 27-10 holding the Vikings, I think it was like in 9 possessions, they had 6 3-and-outs or something, or 9 possessions, 7 3-and-outs. But 49ers defense is outstanding. They've been building that defensive line. They've been building the linebacking core for years. I mean, the whole defense line are first-round picks. The linebackers, first-round picks. So if you're as bad as they have been for the last 4 or 5 years, you can get those picks, but then you're seeing it pay off now. They were 4-12 last year, 13-3 this year, hosting an NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers.
Now, they put together a really good team. Packers fans know that. From about 8 weeks ago, the score over in San Jose, was 30-something to not enough. And the Packers will have to figure out something different come Sunday evening. Again, that's the late game. We'll talk about the early game now in the AFC, and that game will take place in Kansas City as the Chiefs fell behind 24-0 and then outscore the Houston Texans 51-7 the rest of the way. Are you kidding me? 51-7, and momentum in football is a real thing. We've talked about that during our high school broadcasts over the last number of years, and a lot just this past season, but momentum is a real thing in all sports, but especially in football. You could just feel it. It was tangible. You could reach out and touch the momentum in that game, up to and including a ridiculous call to run a fake punt by the Houston Texans. They knew momentum had swung the other way. Just punt the ball, put the Chiefs deep, play regular, traditional football just for a little bit, Bill O'Brien, but instead runs the fake punt. It gets stuffed, and the Chiefs just went crazy.
Yeah, 24-7 at that point when they tried the fake punt. Listening to radio on the way here this morning, a lot of people would not be surprised. Obviously, Bill O'Brien still 3 years left on his contract, but wouldn't be a big surprise if him or Romeo Cornell lost their jobs today. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It was 24-0 after the first quarter. The Chiefs scored 21 points in 3 minutes and 24 seconds. And as I mentioned with Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, the arm that he has, the offense, the speed that the Chiefs have is unmatched. And Houston found that out pretty quickly. as we were joking about earlier before we went on the show, the Chiefs ran out of fireworks. They had to post a message on their video board apologizing to the fans because they ran out of fireworks, scoring 51 points.
Well, we'll see if the Mahomie and the rest of the Chiefs run out of fireworks when they take on the Tennessee Titans in the AFC Championship game. Tennessee got past Baltimore 28-12, and we're going to think back, Steve, to the end of the 2007 season. We'll think back to the end of the 2009 season when 2 6 seeds won Super Bowls. In 2007, into the Super Bowl that occurred in the year of 2008. We'll see if I got this right here, Steve. I know you'll correct me, but that year was the Giants, and then the Packers were the 6th seed in the 2010 season,
10 to 11,
into 11. Okay, and they were the 6th seed. Well, these Tennessee Titans are the 6th seed. Interestingly, though, enough, in those 2 seasons, for the Giants, Eli Manning was the quarterback from start to finish. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback from start to finish, although that may have been one of his concussion seasons. Yep. He may have been out a few weeks, but it was never in doubt who was the starting quarterback. But these Tennessee Titans have had doubts about their quarterback for a number of years. Smart football people like me and you, we knew Marcus Mariota, not a good quarterback. Yeah. We knew that a number of years ago. My brother, Tennessee Titan fan Jamie, just couldn't fathom that Mahalo was not a good quarterback. He's good. We got to get some pieces. And even earlier this year, the Tennessee Titans started out 2-4. And they were left for dead. Mm-hmm. And Jamie, the Titan fan, but we've got the best safety in the league. Really? You've got the best safety in the league. Well, congratulations to you. But you've got a bad quarterback. Well, the Tennessee Titans finally heard me. And they put Mahalo on the bench. They put Mariota on the bench. And they brought in Ryan Tannehill. Now, on Sunday evening, I mentioned the Tennessee Titans took down Baltimore Ravens 28-12. Ryan Tannehill, starting quarterback, he goes 7 for 14, 88 yards. That's not very good. It's not. Here's what is good. Derrick Henry, 30 carries, 195 yards, and a passing touchdown. A passing touchdown. How about that? Now, Tannehill did have 2 of his 7 completions go for touchdowns. Congratulations to the Tennessee Titans. The other thing I'll say is I've got a real bad taste in my mouth now for quite a long time about running quarterbacks. I think back to Randall Cunningham. I lean on Mike Vick. I talk about Robert Griffin. I talk about all these guys that they fade. They sizzle for a little bit, and then the bacon's done in the pan, and they get thrown out, and they fade. Lamar Jackson, 59 passes he threw. 59 passes as a running back who throws the ball sometimes. Now, that time on Saturday, he threw the ball a lot. He also carried it 20 times for 143 yards. So on 79 touches, Steve, 79 touches, he scores the ball once. His team booted from the playoffs, second year in a row, 28-12.
Yeah, and they've been leaning on Mark Ingram all year, and then they go away from him. They fell behind early, and the Tennessee Titans defensively, outstanding game plan, taking down the GOAT and Tom Brady before, and now taking down the number 1 seed Baltimore Ravens. Just going back to Derrick Henry, 30 carries, 195 yards, 6'3", 250 pounds. Nobody, as I was listening to the game on the radio, nobody wants to try and tackle him when he has a 6, 7, 8-yard head start, and he's just going to run right over it. He didn't score. Obviously, he had a passing touchdown, but he was 4 yards away from tying Terrell Davis for yardage in a divisional game rushing, but they're going to have their hands full, obviously, with Kansas City, but Mike Vrabel and company getting the job done. Ryan Tannehill, 1 game away from going back to Miami, playing in the Super Bowl where he was the quarterback for the Dolphins for a number of years. But just big kudos to the Tennessee Titans, get the job done. Their defense, a very good defense, so it's going to be a chess match in the AFC Championship game as well over in Arrowhead. Yeah, coming into the playoffs, I thought the Eagles had the best defense in the playoffs. They just had a JV, not even a JV. They had an 8th grade team on offense. I mean, it was they had injuries all over the place. San Francisco, I felt, had the next best defense, and then Tennessee right after that. Mm-hmm. And Tennessee
They get to play the Patriots, who were fading about as fast as you can fade, and then they go up against Baltimore where they just match up very, very well. I don't know if they've got a very favorable matchup. I'll rephrase. They do not have a favorable matchup in Kansas City. So best of luck to my brother, who's going to head over to Kansas City and watch his Titans lose in the AFC Championship game. But have fun in Kansas City. Arthur Bryant's one of the best barbecue joints in the entire nation. He'll have fun down in Kansas City anyway. All right, so, Steve, that is the NFL weekend as we saw it. We will transition now over to high school sports and our action we had even over the weekend. We had wrestling over the weekend, and Stratford Tigers won a team title at the DC Everest Lurkey Wrestling Invitational. A couple standouts over there for Stratford. Gavin Drexler at 126 won an individual title. Max Schwabe, Devin Denny, and Trevor Denny all won individual titles for the Stratford Tigers. Ashton Ackman finished second at 113 for Spencer. And Auburndale had 5 wrestlers that earned top 5 finishes. Again, that was wrestling over at DC Everest over the past weekend. In gymnastics, we don't talk a whole lot about gymnastics here on the Zaleski Sports Show, but we'll talk about them a little bit more. As a matter of fact, we've got highlights coming of gymnastics on Thursday. But the Marshfield Tigers put up their best score of the season. They were just a point short of a program record as they won the Charlie Martin Gymnastics Invitational Saturday at Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln High School. Last year's state all-around champion Gracie Holland won all 4 events as she continues her championship ways. A fantastic gymnast, and gymnastics, Steve, in high school are a spectator sport. You can go and watch, and so go down and watch, and I think it'd be a fun time. Thursday again, Marshfield is at home.
Well, and it's really something that Wisconsin Rapids hosts 2 state championships. They host cross country and they host gymnastics. So if you can't make a regular season gymnastics invitational or head down to Lincoln High School in a couple months or a couple weeks and go down and watch some state gymnastics, because just like basketball, just like wrestling, just like hockey, anything, these girls give it their all, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Top in the state, and Gracie Holland is an absolutely fantastic athlete, and go watch some gymnastics when you get the opportunity, because they are very good athletes.
Yep, absolutely, and you get to see some of the best in the state, including last year's state champion, Gracie Holland. All right, basketball over the weekend, Friday, we kind of went all the way to the top as we had our featured game of the week, and we kind of saw this one coming, Steve, at the beginning of the season. It was Clover Belt East boys basketball, Neillsville and Spencer. Neillsville wins 63-46, but at halftime, Spencer had a 1-point lead, 28-27, and then Neillsville outscored Spencer in the second half, 36-18. The Warriors rely on hot shooting, they rely on distance shooting, and they had it all going in the second half. They had, I believe they ran off 4 straight three-pointers in the last, or within a 2-minute stretch, right around the 6-minute mark in the second half. That really iced the game. Alex King, it's always fun when you've got some great athletes on the court. Alex King had a throwdown dunk in the first. Let me think here. You're going back here, maybe to the second half. Just a fun time over in Neillsville. Coming into that game, both teams undefeated in the Clover Belt East, so it was a battle at the top. And Neillsville now will have a full game lead over Spencer. It's essentially a half game lead. Spencer has played 1 less game than Neillsville. But in the loss column, that's where you smart sports fans should be looking at the standings, is in the loss column, because you can't make up losses, you can make up wins. And the Warriors now continue. They are 6-0 in the Clover Belt East. And Spencer is 4-1. I'm sorry. Spencer is 6-1, I believe, in the Clover Belt East. That's right. But Neillsville, big win at home, and they'll go to Spencer later. See if the Rockets, with a little bit of comeback, a little bit of get back there. But Warriors 63, Rockets 46.
Yeah, and it was. I was watching a little bit of it on online, and the Spencer Rockets looked like they weren't afraid of anything. I mean, they came out firing. They, as you mentioned, had a 1-point lead at halftime. Great crowd, always a good atmosphere. I saw Spencer take on Pacelli a couple weeks ago, and the Spencer team, obviously getting into conference play and playing a team that you're more used to, is much different, because this Spencer team that I saw on Friday against Neillsville is not the same Spencer team that I saw against Pacelli.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
much different, much more controlled, and really got after Neillsville, but the Warriors too much for the Rockets on Friday night, as you mentioned. Highlights
of that game on Facebook at Zaleski Sports. Also highlights on Facebook at Zaleski Sports of Greenwood Columbus Catholic. That was Clover Belt East basketball, boys basketball again on Friday night. And it was Greenwood with what Coach Halstead essentially called an upset. He said that was a signature win. So we'll take Coach's word for it on that. But it was, again, Greenwood over Columbus Catholic, 69-64. Steve, Greenwood held a 22-point lead in the second half, but you will not ever count out Coach Konechny and the Columbus Catholic Dons. Tom Nystrom, 24 points. Ethan Jacobson had 13, but the Dons fired from distance and fired accurately. Had climbed all the way back to within 3 before a couple Cooper Bredlow free throws and some good Greenwood defense held off at the end. Weston Schmitz led Greenwood with 22 points, but Clover Belt East boys basketball is heating up.
Well, and that's especially a team like Columbus, as you mentioned, that shoots a lot of three-pointers, especially with Tom Nystrom. You can never count a team out when they shoot as well as the Dons have or do, especially being down 22 points again in a conference game. So just unable to get back over that hump, and Greenwood knocking them off 69-64. But as you can't count out a team that shoots as many three-pointers as Neillsville, as Columbus Catholic, and can knock them down with consistency throughout the game.
Yeah, again, Coach Brad Helston said it was a signature win for his team. I think that's coach speak for saying, I'm going to go and tell my guys now that if we can beat Columbus Catholic, we can beat anybody. Mm-hmm. And the Greenwood Indians are right there in the Clover Belt East, and it's I don't know, we're a third of the way through the conference season, just generally speaking. Some conferences maybe a little bit further behind, some a little bit more ahead than that. But we take a look at the standings in the Clover Belt East. Again, we said Neillsville 6-0, Spencer 6-1, Greenwood 4-2, Columbus Catholic 4-2. It's packed at the top of the Clover Belt East. And, Steve, it's also packed at the top of the Wisconsin Valley. In boys basketball. We'll talk about girls basketball here too, but first we'll start with the boys, as Marshfield on Friday night, also with a win at home. They took down Wausau East 64-42, and I don't know that the score was even that close. At the same time, over in Stevens Point, the Smash Panthers had beat the previously overall undefeated DC Everest Evergreens, and that score 71-63. Merrill just sneaks by Wisconsin Rapids 76-72. Lincoln Red Raiders are on the up. They have not won a conference game yet, but they have positive trends, I believe, at Lincoln High School boys basketball. But DC Everest, Marshfield, Merrill, all 3-1, and Stevens Point 2-1. You got 4 teams with 1 loss in the Valley.
Well, and that's a very impressive win for Marshfield to knock off Wausau East and hold them to 42 points. Mm-hmm. You said,
yeah.
A team that has scored 80, 90, 100 points this year. For Marshfield to be able to hold them to that few of points is huge. And Spash getting a big win, as you mentioned, against DC Everest. We have DC Everest and Rapids tomorrow at Zaleski Sports. So that'll be a big game, but a huge, a lot of teams at the top of the Wisconsin Valley, as you mentioned, both boys and girls, and in the Clover Belt East, both boys and girls, very tight at the top of the conference.
Yep, you bet. Staying in the Wisconsin Valley, girls basketball scores from Friday. Marshfield at Wausau East, 72-48. And then Spash picks up the win against DC Everest, 78-60. So here's how Wisconsin Valley girls basketball goes. How about this, Steve? Stevens Point, 4-0. Wausau West, 4-0. Marshfield, 4-1. Looks a lot like the boys in the Valley as far as that's concerned. Maybe a little bit different mixed teams, as West girls basketball at the top. And for your viewing and listening pleasure tonight, Monday, Marshfield at Wausau West, live at ZaleskiSports.com, also on 1450 AM WDLB. Gene Delisio on the call on both broadcasts. But again, it is Wausau West 4-0, Marshfield 4-1. Two of the premier girls basketball coaches in the entire state are going to go head-to-head up in Wausau tonight. And again, we don't predict high school sports here, and I'll keep the trend going with this one, but that is a really good matchup.
Yeah, and especially Marshfield, as you mentioned, coming off a big win, and Wausau West is 6-5 overall. So Wausau West 4-0 in conference, 6-5 overall. Marshfield looking to get that program back to where they want it to be, and be able to go up to Wausau West and possibly knock off Tom Weinkoff and the Wausau West girls would be a huge confidence booster from where we thought Marshfield might be this year. It'd be a signature win for the 2019-2020 Marshfield girls basketball team.
Wausau West boys travel to Marshfield tonight. You can find highlights of both Marshfield-Wausau West contests later tonight at ZaleskiSports.com. Again, the girls' game is live at ZaleskiSports.com. On Tuesday, Steve mentioned it briefly a moment ago, it's DC Everest at Lincoln boys basketball. These are our live games here this week, and all games found at ZaleskiSports.com. DC Everest at Lincoln boys basketball. And then it is Columbus Catholic at Neelsville girls basketball. Cloverbelt East girls also with a very messy top of the standings, and some things may get sorted out there. On Thursday, again, all live sports at ZaleskiSports.com. Auburndale is at Assumption, and you can also listen live at 1320 AM WFHR on Thursday. Loyal is at Columbus boys basketball, so the Dons and Joe Konechny have a chance to get back on their winning ways against rival Loyal Greyhounds. On Friday, it is Auburndale at Assumption boys basketball, also on 1320 AM WFHR. Marshfield is at Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln girls basketball, and you can also listen at 1450 AM WDLB. And Saturday, got a pair of games on Saturday. It's Pacelli at Assumption. It's a girls-boys doubleheader. Again, both of those games at ZaleskiSports.com and 1320 AM WFHR. Steve will also get us caught up on UW Stevens Point sports on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, to the best of my knowledge, and we'll get you caught up again. All of those highlights, including it is UW Stevens Point men's hockey on Facebook right now at Zaleski Sports Wisconsin. Steve, we'll give you 20 seconds. Tell us about hockey over at UW Stevens Point, men's hockey.
Yeah, knocking off Augsburg, the number 5 ranked team in the country in Division III, able to get a big win. Their third win over a ranked team in their last 4 games. After coming off of a 26-day stretch, got a big win over Hamlin and then Augsburg, and now 11 more days off before they take on Eau Claire.
Heard some Augsburg alumni were over at that game enjoying the hockey game over there at UW Stevens Point. Again, high school sports fans know that not a whole lot to choose from on Wednesdays especially, and then sometimes on Saturday. Well, UW Stevens Point will help out your sports itch and go over there and watch tremendous collegiate athletics and sports, again, over at UW Stevens Point Wednesdays and Saturdays and other days during the week, too. Wrap up today's show talking about college football. And college football will hit its climax tonight as Clemson takes on LSU in the 2020 College Football National Championship game. And it is a kind of a battle of 2 quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence for Clemson, Joe Burrow of LSU, Heisman winner Joe Burrow. And those 2 guys will tangle for the College Football Championship tonight. That all starts at 7 o'clock over on ESPN. And we think it's going to be a high-scoring game, both teams on the higher scoring end. And it's just a nice way to end the football season, of course, with a championship, as those 2 go at it, as I'm looking on the matchup predictor on ESPN.com. The fans out there say Clemson, 56% chance of winning tonight. I had that the other way. I've got LSU with a 56% chance of winning. But that's what we're looking at tonight for college football. Again, all week long, stay tuned to ZaleskiSports.com. We're all live sports highlights all week. We got about a dozen, up to 14 highlights coming this week on the Zaleski Sports Facebook network, and games with our radio partners, 1450 AM WDLB and 1320 AM WFHR. For Steve Maves, Jason Zaleski here saying have a great week, everybody, and go sports.